Good day and a very warm welcome on behalf of NTI Audio. Today we are talking about the combination of several sound level measurements into a single project and consequently into a single report. My name is Markus Becker. I'm moderating this webinar and I'm assisted by Berno Niksch, our sales director, who is taking care of your questions. During the next approximately half an hour, we will cover the following topics. We will start with a brief introduction on the motivation and the scope of this webinar. We will then explain to you how to record measurements and levels with the XL2 autonomously or via the NoiseScout platform. Then we will take a look on the concatenation of XL2 datasets into a single project. And then we will swap over to the analysis of the data, which starts with the placing of markers. Then I will explain the difference between the day-night level and the level rating before we come to the key part of this webinar, the practical presentation. After that, I will summarize the most important issues and add some more hints and tips. Well, let us assume you got the task to monitor the sound level, for instance, on a construction site or in a neighborhood or alongside a road for a longer time period. What do you need? You need, of course, a sound level meter that is able to record this data over several days or weeks or even months. Well, at the end of your recording period, you are facing the challenge to import the acquired data into a suitable solution platform and to analyze it. And that is what we will present to you today. So if we may show that to you schematically, we start with the data recording and then concatenating these several data sets into one single project. As soon as we have done that, we can start with the data analysis. First, we place some markers to highlight specific events or maybe to exclude other events that you do not want to go into your overall assessment. Then the detailed analysis starts with the calculation of the day-night level, or more popular, the rating level. But also the audit intervals play an important role in this analysis process. As soon as you have completed that, you may create the final report, which comprises the most relevant information you want to hand over to your customer. So these are the steps we're going to show in this presentation, starting with the data recording alternatives, the concatenation, the data analysis, and the creation of a report. So the first step is, of course, to measure the sound levels and to record them. And here you have two alternatives. The first one is if you set up an XL2 in the standalone mode, so autonomously, you connect it to mains power and you let it measure and record over a longer time period. For that purpose, you need to adjust the input range accordingly. You need to switch on the autosave mode, which you find here behind that icon, so that it automatically saves all the recorded data. You need to edit the logging. You find that here in the menu bar. You have to activate the logging. You have to set the time interval. You have to decide whether the spectra shall be included in the measurement or not. You may switch on the audio recording, typically in the compressed format if you are measuring over a longer period of time. This allows you to listen to the events at the end of the recording. And of course, you need to define which levels shall be measured during this whole period. Then you proceed to the scheduler panel. You find that here behind the system menu entry, you have to activate the scheduling by defining a start date and a duration per time interval. This is typically 24 hours if we are talking about a long-term level acquisition. Then you should enable the recurrence. If you want to measure over several days, you have to define the weekdays when the instrument shall be measuring and how many days shall be acquired over the whole period. As soon as you have selected all these settings, you may click on this button to start the schedule and the measurement accordingly. Well, at the end of this recording period, the SD card of the XL2 holds a couple of data sets, typically one for each day, and these data sets now need to be concatenated into one project. For that purpose, we need the Data Explorer software, where you click on the Import button. Consequently, this panel opens and it shows you these data sets that you have copied from the SD card of the XL2 to your PC. Now it is important to tick this radio button here, which says one single project. So the data sets that you are then selecting will all be concatenated into one project. Eventually, you click on the Open button and the import and concatenation procedure starts. I will show you that afterwards in the practical presentation. Now, the second alternative to acquire sound levels over a long time period is by using the Noise Scout platform. Here you would position your XL2 together with a netbox at the point of the measurement, and the netbox would be connected to your PC via 3G mobile data connection through this Noise Scout platform. So to start a measurement, you need to open a location in the Noise Scout portal. You have to define which levels shall be measured and logged, and then start the recording. This is just a brief overview on this procedure. If you want to know more about that, you will find a more detailed explanation on our website, where we have already presented a webinar on this specific topic. This is just a brief summary of the most important steps to get there. Now, having recorded the data in the Noise Scout via the Noise Scout platform over a longer period of time, you may download them to your PC. For that purpose, you again go to the location, you scroll down to this panel, latest hour detailed data, and here you can now define the start and the end date of the time period, the time interval in which you are interested. Having done this selection manually, you can click on the download link and the data will be downloaded to your PC in one big file. Now you have all the data on your PC. You can start the analysis with the Data Explorer. And as stated before, the first important step is to highlight specific events in your data, very loud incidents or other disturbances, annoying sounds, whatever. And for that purpose, you need to place these markers in the chart. I will show you that afterwards in the practical presentation. But what is important to know, that these markers are always covering a certain time period. And to explain that, here you see here these arrows represent the time interval, for instance 1 second, during which a level is recorded, and the final point here gives me the average level of that recording, of that time interval, followed by the next interval and the next measurement point, the third one, and so on and so forth. So when I place a marker over these 3 points, for instance, the marker represents only the time period during which the data are highlighted. So it is quite obvious that this very first point here, the red one now, will not be included in the marker because the time period that let it happen, where it evolved, was happening before the marker. And I show you that in a practical example. Here we have a level recording of a longer time period, and apparently in the very beginning there was a loud noise. So if we place the marker this way, we will not include these points, so these high sounds will go into our overall calculation, which is probably not wanted. And for that reason, we need to extend the marker in this way so that it completely covers the whole time period that we want to, in this case, exclude from our calculation. Now let me step to the next topic, the difference between the day-night level and the level rating. First, we start with the day-night level. The day-night level is defined as the long-term average, the LAEQ, of the sound level with individual ratings per day, evening or night. I'm going to show you that just in a second. So the outcome, the result of a LDN calculation is one value per day. Here we see an example with 3 consecutive days where we have the daytime, the evening, the first half of the night, the second half, the next daytime, evening, and this next night, and so on and so forth. Now what we do is we accumulate the sound level during the daytime and apply a penalty. In this case, it's a penalty of 0. Then we accumulate the level in the evening and apply a penalty, in this case, of 5 dB. Why? Because in the evening, people prefer to be less bothered by noise, and especially, of course, during the night. And that is the reason why during the nighttime, the penalty is the highest. So the environmental noise will be somehow artificially increased with this penalty to have a better understanding of the annoyance. However, and that is a very important point, the LDN does not truly consider the annoyance, annoying sounds, impulses or tones, whatever. It just averages the sound level and applies these penalties. And that is the reason why the rating level is the much more popular solution. In the rating level, we have again the long-term LAEQ, but now we apply penalties depending on annoying components in our sounds, impulses, tones, or special events. Each of these incidents may result in a penalty that is added to the overall result. So these incidents represent the true annoyance of the level. The result of a rating level calculation is a table with the individual rating levels per time interval. The time interval can be defined by you. And now comes the point where you come into the play, you the consultant, because now you have to truly and thoroughly analyze the outcome of this level rating. You have to take a look on the impact of annoying sounds. You have to listen to them. You have to define the amount of the penalty that needs to be applied. Maybe you need to find out the loudest hour of the day or of the night, depending on the standard you have to comply to. Or you have to consider other aspects. So this analysis is a mixture of predefined methods and subjective methods. And that is something that must be kept always in your mind. Most standards which deal with the rating level, they comprise both objective methods and subjective analysis methods. So objective means it is clearly defined which incident causes which penalty. Subjective means that you, with your experience, have to take this decision. Please notice for the more detailed understanding of the rating level, you may also watch a webinar recording that we have already published on our website. This is just a brief overview on this topic. Now let us step over to the practical presentation. I have here Data Explorer software installed on my PC together with the MS Microsoft Excel spreadsheet program, and I have a couple of long-term level data that I will import now and show you how to analyze it. So first we switch over to the Data Explorer. This is here the welcome screen. Now, as stated before, we want to import a number of files, of recorded data files. So we click on this button, which opens this panel. Now we make sure that here we have ticked this radio button, one single project, because we want to concatenate all these data into one project. And now we may select the files as we like. So they don't need to be consecutive. They can be just as random, or not random, but any selection of files that you're interested in. I click on open, and now you see the green bars. Wait a second, there is a problem. Now it starts. Now you see the green bars in the bottom, which tell me that now the logged data and also the audio data of these selected files are being imported. This takes, of course, a little bit of time, mainly because the software already accumulates the data in a way that the following analysis can be executed as smoothly and as quickly as possible. So that's it. Here, that would be our concatenated project. Please allow me now to open another project which I also concatenated. The reason is that here I have much more data, I have a much longer recording period, and it's just better suited to show you the analysis principles. So here you see over a couple of days I have been recording sound levels. You see the A-weighted and the unweighted sound, LAQ, DT. Here the spectrum of the recording, and up here the blue bar tells me that I have an audio file throughout the whole recording. The black bars just tell me that here the audio recording was split into subsets of data just to avoid that this file becomes too large. Well, now the first thing we might do, we want to take a look at the day-night level. So I open the corresponding panel. Here I can manually define the start time of the daytime, of the evening, of the night, and so on and so forth. I can edit the penalties that I want to apply. And by just pressing this button, the software will calculate the results. And I guess you can see that here for each day, we get one result. If you want to further process or use this data, we can just right-click on this table, copy the data, and paste them, for instance, in a spreadsheet program like Microsoft Excel. But I will refrain from doing that today because it's very simple and straightforward. I will want to focus more on the more demanding but also more popular rating level. Now, for the rating level, as stated before, we need to highlight specific incidents in this recording. And we do so by clicking here on the automated marker button. And now, for instance, let us look for high levels, so levels that exceeded 75 dB. And I assign the markers that I'm going to create now to the level marker, level type. So I make these definitions manually. I already did that before. I press calculate, and you see 8 markers have been found during this period. I confirm, and I can see them. They are just already visible here. Now let me repeat the same thing with the pure tones. Assign them to the tone marker. Calculate. Yes. And impulses. If you are interested in these settings, please take a look at this rating level webinar that we have already presented some time ago, and you'll find it on our website. Good. Now you see here we have a couple of automatically created markers. Maybe you noticed 3 markers called pause were already present at the very beginning. And let me very briefly look into that to let you understand that. This recording here was done with the XL2 in the standalone mode. So every 24 hours, the instrument closed the recording file, the log file, and started a new one. And this process of closing and reopening takes a couple of seconds, during which no measurement takes place. And that is the reason why the instrument automatically creates this pause marker, which excludes this data from the consequent calculation. Well, let us take a look at the outcome. We swap over to the table view. So here we see the 3 pause markers, and now we see all the level markers, the tone markers, the impulse markers that we have created. Now, let us assume we want to know more about these markers. What happened? Here, for instance, we have one with a pretty high value. So we just double click on it, and the software will automatically flip back to this incident which happened. We can now listen by clicking here on the bar. We can listen to what has happened, and then you can decide whether this marker shall stand or whether you may delete it. You are absolutely free now to edit this recording according to your demands. By the way, you can also place your own markers. For instance, if you know that a certain area was of no interest, so now I just placed an exclude marker, so you're absolutely free to do here whatever you want. However, maybe you are still looking for some additional information regarding what is happening every hour. For instance, some standards require that you need to identify the loudest hour in the night. How can we get there? For that purpose, we click here on the level button and we activate the audit intervals for 60 minutes. We confirm, and the software calculates now for each 60 minutes consecutively of the recording period, there is corresponding levels. So here you have all the information you need to find out which was the loudest hour during the day, during the night, in the evening time, whatever. Still, you may be interested in more information. Maybe you want to sort these audit intervals by the size of the amount, the level, the highest level on top, the lowest one on the bottom, and so on and so forth. So for that purpose, it is recommended to export these data to the Microsoft Excel. So I click on this button, I select the name of the file, I confirm, and now the software will automatically create a new Excel file with all the data. Here you see all the relevant information. The project name, we can already highlight a little bit that. The instruments that were used, the automatically generated markers, the manually, or the ones that you afterwards created. I can also collapse them, by the way, to get a better overview. Here we have the audit intervals, and now with the standard Excel means I can sort these data, for instance, or look for specific events, whatever. I can delete lines, I can add one, whatever I want. So as I said in the beginning, this is an absolute individual process. It is very important that you take your time and your experience to analyze these data thoroughly to come to a reasonable solution. Well, at the end, you may want to create a report which not only shows the data, but also a graph. It's very simple. I just added some lines. I switch back to my Data Explorer software, here to the chart, right-click, copy bitmap, get back to Excel, paste. Sorry, that was the wrong one. paste here, confirm, and I have my chart included. I can even add more lines to add comments or whatever I want. I can here take a view how my report looks like. I could even add a logo. So you see there's lots of flexibility and freedom for you to align, to edit this report according to your demands. Yeah, let me get back to the Data Explorer software, because I also want to show you a rather simple alternative to this individualized report. If we click on this button here, we will see the standard, the default report created by the Data Explorer software, which is of course not as individual. It's just combining all the information, the graphs and the tables here. And you may here even add some comments and whatever you want. So you, to a certain extent, may also edit this default report. You can also exchange the logo, but you're much more restricted in the abilities to identify specific incidents or to weight them or to show them in a different way, because this is given by the software here. The Excel solution is much more flexible. Well, I also want to show you, this was the long-term recording acquired with the XL2 in standalone mode. I also want to briefly show you a recording that was acquired via the Noise Scout platform. Here we will receive the downloaded data in one chunk. There is no concatenation necessary. And what you see here, by the way, also is a fundamental difference. With the Noise Scout system, you typically do not record over the whole time period. You just record short moments. The audio, I'm talking about the audio file. For instance, if we have a sharp peak here, the system will automatically record the audio for a couple of seconds so that you can listen to what has happened here. The other solution I showed you before was a continuous audio recording. Furthermore, this platform allows you to connect a weather station. So here you can see I can define a maximum or a threshold for wind speed to place markers in order to inform you that at this point a very sharp wind was blowing. So aside of the level and the other markers, you can also create these weather station induced markers. Well, that was basically the practical part of my webinar. So let me get back to my presentation and summarize the fundamental procedure we are following. Please make yourself acquainted with the situation, the local requirements, the applicable standards. This is a British standard or the German one. They give you some definitions what you have to look for. Then, as shown after the recording, you can analyze the data. You can create automated markers, also manual ones. You can look at the audit intervals with customizable time slots. And in the result view, you see the data in table form. And strongly recommendable, export the data to a spreadsheet program, which gives you much more freedom and flexibility to not only analyze the data, but also to create a report with all the relevant information. Finally, some hints and tips. I showed you the two alternatives to record the data, standalone mode with a scheduler. Keep in mind here you need to concatenate the data at the import, or the automated recording via the Noise Scout web portal. Here we get an automatically concatenated data file. So just one big file with all the data you need. Make sure to place the markers correctly over the time interval of interest. Then the penalties, we have seen the automated identification, but you're always free to apply your own individual penalties according to your demands, according to the situation. And here it is really recommended to listen to the recording to make a thorough assessment. Last but not least, when you are at the point of creating a report, you can use the default report created by the software, or you can create your own individual one extracted from a spreadsheet program. Well, I'm at the end of my presentation. Before I look at the questions that have popped in, just the hint that you may contact us or our partners at any time. We will be always happy to support you to solve your issues. And if you want to look at this or previous webinars, just visit our website. You will find them there. They're publicly available. Me from my side, I want to thank you very much for your attendance. Have a good time, stay healthy, and bye-bye.